Today's episode of Tater Talk is brought to you by our sponsor, PG Sports. If you're an avid listener of the show, you need to check out pg-sports.com. We've been telling you for weeks now they have the best merch in the game, and they're going to continue putting out new merch every single month. The best part is you can head over there and buy some merch using the promo code TATER. That's promo code TATER for 15% off your next order. Again, that's pg-sports.com with promo code TATER.
Boston organization has been well run for a long time now. From the top on down, here comes a 1-2 pitch. Red Sox win the World Series. 5-1 the final tonight. And the best team in baseball wins it all in 2018.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Tater Talk. It's episode 80. It is November 1st, which means the World Series is over, and the 2018 Boston Red Sox are World Series champs. And I really don't even know where it begins, Zach, because we're obviously Red Sox fans. Any listener of the podcast, any loyal listener, I should say, knows that. And I think we're pretty good at being unbiased, but I think this is going to be a Red Sox circle jerk episode. So if you're not into that, maybe just stop listening now. But Zach, how excited are you that this team actually got the job done? I don't think either of us expected this. We both picked the Astros for the World Series, but the Red Sox proved us wrong, which was a big theme of this postseason, players proving us wrong. And I'll start there. What do you got on it?
Yeah, I think just overall looking at the playoffs, the Red Sox obviously had an unbelievable regular season. Like, in my mind, almost too good.
Yeah.
There was a lot of expectations on them going into the playoffs. And given the road they had to go through, Yankees, Astros, Dodgers, the World Series was a little bit of a probably the worst team they faced in the playoffs, honestly, because I do think the Yankees and the Astros are two of the strongest teams in MLB. So once they got through the Yankees and Astros, I was a bit more confident. But going in, I think we both had the same opinion. Like, we thought the Red Sox could be in trouble. Not only their bullpen concerns, but if their offense goes cold, will they keep up the power? But it all came to fruition. I mean, another great World Series. And, you know, it's great that we're hosting a podcast as Red Sox fans to get to talk about it.
Yeah, and it's convenient that Graz, the Yankee fan, isn't here for this episode.
He's been
out. Yeah, he's been no showing. I guess if you're a Yankee fan podcast producer, I can't really blame you for not being on the show since the postseason started. I guess that makes sense because the Red Sox have pretty much humiliated the Yankees all postseason long with the New York thing. And I think I probably would have played that over. We wouldn't even have a podcast if Graz was on. I think I would have just spent an hour each episode just playing that song. So yeah, maybe in his best interest to not come on.
I'm telling you, like, this postseason has wrecked Yankees fans. Like, growing up in Connecticut, it's pretty much split, and a lot of my friends that are Yankees fans have gone absolutely radio silent.
Yeah,
and it's great. Like, I'll just send them Snapchats with me and my Red Sox hat, just like smiling a little bit, like after they win. They know what's up. It's just
what's even better. What's even better is when they try to say that the Yankees own real estate, or the Red Sox are living the Yankees are living rent free in the Red Sox head. That's what it is. I've been seeing that everywhere, and that's just hilarious because
that's a spin zone.
Oh my God, it is. But it's every Yankee fan is using it, and it's hysterical.
They're rattled.
They have to face it.
Rattled.
The Red Sox stole their song. They took it. It's all Aaron Judge's fault. They have no one to blame but Aaron Judge. It's all on him. You don't do that to a 108 win team in the middle of a series when you win one game. You just don't do it. You do it at the end of the series. And obviously that sparked them playing New York after every single victory, which I think is amazing. And I'm pretty biased, but I think it's pretty cool. Now let's get into the series itself. We said this in the last podcast, the World Series preview. Everything that the Red Sox have done this postseason was the complete opposite of expectations, and that continued into the World Series. Exhibit A, Steve Pearce getting World Series MVP. Exhibit B is David Price just having another unbelievable series. And then you have Nathan Eovaldi come in. And who needs a bullpen when you have Nathan friggin' Eovaldi? So all three of those things were probably the standouts to me from the series. How are you going to look back on this series in a few years?
I'm gonna think of it kind of like from a Patriots perspective, like that 18-0 year where we just like couldn't win the
Yeah.
last game. Like this year, we were great in the regular season, and guess what? We backed it up in the playoffs. And to be honest, I didn't think they surprised me in the playoffs that the culture on this team was so good. Like you could see it in their celebration and during the playoffs. Like that moment when Sale was coming in game 5 in the ninth inning with the bullpen like standing and clapping for him, that's the kind of culture you don't see on a lot of teams. And I didn't think this team had that type of culture just because we didn't see it a lot. But it looks like behind the closed doors, that's what it was. And Sale yelling at people in the dugout in game 4, I think. I just love that attitude. And I felt this Red Sox team was soft, but it was actually the opposite. It was a quiet confidence. So I'll remember that piece. And like you mentioned, Pierce was amazing. Evaldi was amazing. You got to hand it to Dave Dombrowski.
Yeah.
2 great pickups. I mean, people have been negative on him just because he sold the farm system, but he just knew these guys were gamers and would perform in the postseason.
That's why you sell the farm system, is to have a team like this that can just go and win 108 games and just breeze through the postseason. Any other time, like if they lost in the World Series, this season would be a failure with all the talent that's on this team. And moving forward, I actually still have doubts about this team's long term, whether they'll be able to sustain this, because they have a lot of question marks, whether it be in free agency in the near future and so on. I don't know how they're going to be able to keep everybody. But that being said, when you can win even one title after making all, it makes it all worth it. And if you look at all the prospects that the Red Sox have given up for these big names like Chris Sale and etc., none of them have really panned out. I mean, we look at Moncada; he's been a dud of the week how many times on this podcast? We look at Michael Kopech; he's having issues. So everything's coming up Red Sox right now, and it'll be interesting to see how things go moving forward. I mean, we've seen this team go from first to worst before. I'm not saying that's going to happen again, but you can't rule it out. But I think we just have to bask in this right now as Red Sox fans, and that goes for Red Sox fans as a whole. And who knows where it goes from here, but this team was fun to watch.
Yeah, I think building this team, Dombrowski knew he was going to have a 3 to 4 year window. And I think we're in year 2 or 3 of that. So I agree with you. I don't like they have great young players. They can't pay everyone. They can't, David Price is going to opt in, obviously, but who knows if performance is going to dip for a lot of these guys. So, I mean, like you said, just enjoy the World Series. It doesn't happen too often for a lot of teams. Just look at the Cubs, and we've been so blessed as Red Sox fans. I know my dad and like guys in my family talk about the Red Sox growing up. Like we just can't win the big game. And we've been so blessed to have teams that can just like, once they get to the playoffs, they turn on another switch. There's no real pressure. Like they just win and that was the biggest thing to me in like game 1 and 2. The Dodgers came back, tied it up, then took the lead in game 2. The Red Sox came right back and scored. And I feel like the Dodgers, they were done after that. Like that's so demoralizing. I just love the attitude and the camaraderie of this Red Sox team.
Yeah, I felt the same way, except game 3, I swayed a little bit more towards the Dodgers side because, I mean, my prediction all along was Sox in 5, but anytime you have you lose an 18-inning game,
it's like 2 losses.
Exactly. That momentum, there's nothing. I'd rather the momentum of winning an 18-inning game than actually winning 2 straight games in a series. The 18 innings takes a toll on you. I don't care who you are, how good of a lineup you have. And you could actually see that after that, the offense was still pretty cold until Steve Pierce woke it up. And Chris Sale obviously cursed out the entire dugout, which another awesome highlight of the series. That definitely woke the team up. So that's what I'm going to look back in the series. All these guys proved us wrong. They all had this heart. They all had heart, similar to like the 04 and 13 teams. And I think that's another. They had that perfect balance of talent and heart. And I think if you blend sort of the 04, 07, and 13 championships, you get this type of team. They had a little bit of everything.
Yep. So where do you rank this in terms of the Red Sox World Series teams? I know everyone's been talking about that just because of their regular season performance as well.
I think you got to rank them first, and I think it's a close first. I think nostalgia kind of blinds us a little bit with that 04 team. I know they ended the curse and everything. They had that amazing comeback, and obviously I'm a little bit biased because I remember this World Series a hell of a lot better than I remember the 04 one when I was 11 years old. So I know a lot of that comes with it, but this team won 108 games. It breezed through the postseason, like I said, as opposed to the 04 team that had a pretty tough time. I think again, in terms of just pure talent, you'd have to at least consider this as the best Red Sox team ever. I'm not saying it definitely is, but it's in the conversation for sure.
For sure. I think it's just based on what they accomplished. I would rank this one. The '07 team was a wagon. Like they ran through everyone. So I'd rank them 2. And then I'd rank '04 and 13. I think they just got hot and caught lightning in a bottle. So
yeah. And if we're talking just team chemistry, I think '04 is probably number 1. This one's a close second. And again, that honestly has a lot to do with just the nostalgia and like watching the '04 World Series DVDs and being like, wow, this group of idiots, like they were amazing together.
They broke the curse.
They broke the curse. Like they'll never be forgotten for that one reason. And this team, I mean, everyone had expectations that they were going to be, if they were anything other than a first place team, all hell would have broken loose. And we saw how sports talk radio was with this team, despite them winning 108 games in the regular season and beating the best teams in the playoffs. And they still found ways to be negative about them. So
yeah, exactly right.
My favorite moment for sure, though, throughout this entire postseason, I know we had Price. I know we had Steve Pearce stepping up. My favorite moment is easily the Eovaldi game, even though it came in a loss. This guy came off of 2 Tommy John surgeries and was still throwing 100 after like 5-6 innings in relief on no days rest. What he did for this team in that game, his teammates' reaction speak for itself. But I'll never forget it. No matter where he goes in free agency, he'll never have to buy a beer in Boston ever again.
Yeah, I think that game, game 3, even though they lost it, will go down as like a great World Series game.
Yeah.
You know, a classic. Even though the play wasn't great down the stretch, like you said, Eovaldi came in, he wanted the ball. The fact that there was reports that all these pitchers were like knocking on Cora's door, like I want the ball. You don't see that on a lot of other teams. Like, okay, Walker Buehler. Understand he's young. He's a stud, though.
You have to use him in those
once in this series.
Dave Roberts had a horrible series. I've never seen worse managing in a World Series in my life.
I think the Red Sox definitely won this, but the Dodgers didn't help with the way they managed, and Dodgers were in most of these games. It's not like the Red Sox blew them out, except maybe in Game 5, like once they got up 5-1. You know,
hey Dave Roberts, maybe not use Ryan Madsen this game. I don't know if it's going to work out. Like it hasn't worked out the first 3 times. Maybe just
I've seen that story before.
Oh my god, Ryan Madsen was good like 5 years ago. He's not. His ERA was like 6 during the regular season, and he had a slight turnaround towards the end. That doesn't mean you use him in every single game when he's giving up absolute moonshots.
Yeah, and let me sit Muncy, Bellinger, and Peterson in my first 2 games just because we're facing lefties. Like they're our best hitters.
All of his best hitters, they had the most home runs on the team this season. All of them sat for like half the series. It makes absolutely 0 sense. He was just trying way too hard to get cute with it. I think a lot of it also stems from the general manager over there. So I don't think it's 100% Robert's fault. And then you had Rich Hill, who it seemed like he pulled himself out of that game, even though he was dominating. Altogether, I mean, the Red Sox had the managing advantage. They were obviously the better team. I think the Dodgers only won like 91, 92 games this season, so they would have been 16 games behind the Red Sox. It was clearly the better team won, the better manager won. So no surprise there. I agree with you in saying the better matchups were the Yankees and the Astros. And then when they went it was like the '07 World Series. The real challenge was before the World Series. Once they saw the Rockies, they were like, okay, this is easy from here on out.
Yeah, definitely. Did you think Pearce deserved to win MVP? Obviously he did, but did you have any different opinions on that?
If I had a vote, it would have been David Price.
Me too.
But I obviously understand why Steve Pearce won the award. It's not like rocket science why he won it. I just think David Price, I mean, he had more of an impact on the entire series as a whole. That being said, Pearce did wake the offense up on multiple occasions. It seemed like they just had no answer for Dodgers pitching until he stepped up to the plate. So
yeah, I thought Price should have won it, but again, he's getting paid $30 million. Pearce is getting paid peanuts.
Right.
The guy deserves it. I mean, from what he did coming out of nowhere, like you knew if the Red Sox won this series, David Price was going to be good, just because he had to be. Steve Pearce came out of nowhere and was the best offensive player in this series. So
yeah, and props to Dave Dombrowski for seeing. I actually liked that move because they didn't really give up anything for him, and I was like, this guy's gonna mash against left-handers. They need help against left-handed pitching, and he did it against righties too throughout the entire postseason. So hats off to Steve Pearce. Did you know World Series MVP voting, there's only 5 votes.
No,
Only 5 people vote on them, and some of those votes are split. Like they split it with other right. It's insane. Baseball is so outdated when it comes to voting on pretty much everything. Or actually, let me rephrase that. Baseball is just outdated. They need to figure some shit out.
Yep. And the cool thing about this series is like every Red Sox player had a touch point. Mitch Moreland come off the bench, hit that big home run
right after the Sale rant.
Nunez game 2, and
Nunez is painful to watch sometimes. Like him, the way he falls down and struggles to move. I love Nunez now that the Red Sox are World Series champs, but that guy is tough to watch.
Someone was talking on MLB Network, and they say that Nunez is like the biggest diver and like prima donna ever.
Yeah, and he is.
Yeah,
they're correct.
And how about Joe Kelly? Like
that's
that guy came out of nowhere and just nails out of the bullpen. So
yeah, Joe Kelly, he was a roller coaster ride all season long. Very beginning of the year, he was actually right after the brawl against the Yankees. He was lights out. Had a cold spell, a pretty long one in like the summer months, and then he went back to being absolutely. He looked like Pedro Martinez in this postseason.
Yeah, he did.
So he had great stuff, and then Chris Sale, the way he stepped up, despite he was clearly not right. He had shoulder issues, obviously, heading into the World Series. He had stomach problems in the middle of the postseason. Comes in, closes the game out, strikes out Machado he just made Machado that picture of Machado falling down as he takes the final swing of the World Series and the Red Sox win it. That's going to live on forever. So it couldn't have been wrapped up much better for the Red Sox.
Yep, totally agree.
So that's pretty much the World Series. We'll stop the Red Sox circle jerk. That'll have to wait till at least next year. And again, we're not this is not a Red Sox podcast. If you're a first time listener, we usually talk about the entire MLB, but we have to bask in our moment right now and just celebrate what was an awesome Red Sox run. Now, looking ahead to next season, the Red Sox have some things. They have a lot of work to do in free agency. They're going to have to figure out who's going to be worth the money and who to say goodbye to. Now, they're free agents. I have the list of them here. And I want to know what you think, who's going to come back and who we're going to be saying goodbye to. Now, Eduardo Nunez already exercised his option, and the team picked up Chris Sale's option, so don't have to worry about those for now. Now, we'll start with Nathan Eovaldi. I think he's setting himself up for some really good money in this postseason. Do you think he stays with the Red Sox, or do you think he finds a new home?
I think he probably finds a new home. I think Cora said when Eovaldi was knocking on his door, it's like, your agent's going to kill me if I keep throwing you out there. And like, that's what I love about Cora. That's like the truth. I mean, Eovaldi's agent was probably like, dude, stop. Like, you're going to get paid. You've already showed that you're almost back to kind of where you were when you were a great prospect. But I would love for him to stay with the Red Sox, but I think it's just a money thing. I think he'll probably get like $10 million more on the open market than what the Red Sox are willing to pay him. So
yeah, I mean, in the midst of the moment when Eovaldi was, again, when he was just shutting down the Dodgers in that relief outing, I was just tweeting in all caps, pay this man, Dombrowski. He deserves to get paid. Like, give him a blank check. Now that the World Series is over, looking at it realistically, I don't think they're going to do that. I think he'll go to I think he's going to end up on a National League team like the Braves or something, someone who needs like a right-hander. And I hope he comes back to Boston. My heart says yes, but my brain says it's not going to happen. They have other things to figure out. But he was an amazing addition to this team. He'll never be forgotten in Boston history if he does not come back. Next up is Joe Kelly. What do you think from him?
I think Kelly will take a deal to stay with the Red Sox. Okay. And I don't think there'll be a lot of people clamoring for him like Eovaldi. I think he's so inconsistent that I think he'll stay with the Red Sox.
Yep, I'm on the same page with you there. I think Joe Kelly comes back, and that leads us into this one, Craig Kimbrell. I'll start with this one. I don't think Kimbrell's coming back, and I think Joe Kelly could take over as the new Kimbrell.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And it's not just off his performance. I just feel like
he's going to be he's going to cost so much, and it's not going to be worth it after what we saw this season.
And I feel like he's on the fast track for arm problems. I don't think he comes back, and I think it's actually a good decision by the Red Sox not to pay him. So
Agreed. After what you saw in the postseason, it's very hard to bring him back with what he's likely going to demand in free agency. I could see him going to a smaller market where there's really no pressure, similar to when he was on the Padres, and just dominating again next season. Now that there's less of a spotlight on
I
him,
could see him going back to the Braves, honestly. So
that could work too. Yeah, they need some bullpen help over there too. Okay, so next up here we have do we really need to talk Drew Pomeranz? He's got to be gone, right?
he's got to be gone. It's funny. So some girl I knew at UConn, she's marrying Matt Barnes. So she was. I got a lot of background Instagram stories from the celebrations.
Okay.
So when they went to the club and celebrated after Game 5, her Instagram stories were pretty much all of Drew Pomeranz blacked out. Like he was blacked out, covered in beer. It was one of the funniest things. I wish I could share them, but I can't. But it was just funny to see him blacked out. He didn't even do anything.
I was gonna say, I guess I respect that. Like if you just gotta ride the wave as much as you can, even though you were not part of the postseason. He did have he had very few moments, I guess I should say, but he had some moments where he helped out the team this season. Last season, he actually had a lot of good moments. So some of me feels bad for Pomeranz that he wasn't able to contribute to this year's World Series roster. At the same time, it's hilarious picturing him just getting blacked out and celebrating this team's success.
Yeah, there was one image that I just have engraved in my mind. He's just like standing there at the club and people are just pouring champagne on him and he just has a blank stare because he's so wasted.
I love that. That makes me very happy picturing that.
Yeah.
So then we have a pair of second basemen here, Kinsler and Brandon Phillips. Now, I think we have to assume at this point that Dustin Pedroia is coming back healthy. Cora said that Pedroia is leading off next season. I don't know where that came from or why. I think he's just saying it to maybe he even knows that Pedroia is done and he's just saying that to be a good guy.
You know how it can be. Like I think Pedroia is like, fuck, I missed out on this. Like I could have been a part of this team, been a leader, and now he's like, Cora's gonna kiss his ass to try to get him back and buy in. I'm over Dustin Pedroia.
Me too.
I'm fine with moving on from him, honestly.
I love Pedroia, but I think his time has passed, and I hope he proves me wrong. I really do. But I don't think Kinsler or Phillips is coming back. I would actually rather Brock Holt as the full-time second baseman than either of those guys.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you can always find a second baseman, honestly. It's not a position that I think is like you need to fill with a stud.
Assuming Pedroia is not healthy next season, I think you roll with Brock Holt until at least the trade deadline. You see what you have there, and then you just trade for a middle-of-the-road second baseman who can help, like a Steve Pearce type that will help out down the stretch versus like left-handers or something.
Yeah,
you can, and that's our next one, Steve Pearce. I want him back. I don't think he comes back because, like I just said, you could just find a Steve Pearce at the trade deadline. It's one of those guys who, he had his awesome moment with the Red Sox. I think you can find a contributor like that, like a similar type of player at the trade deadline. You don't need to dish out extra cash in free agency.
Yeah, I think Pierce stays, and I think it's just because his swing just fits Fenway Park so well. I think he understands that, and I think I honestly think he'll finish his career Red Sox. I think what he did for this postseason will not go unnoticed with the Red Sox, and they might, give him a little bit more than what he's looking for because at this point his game's not built on speed or strength. Like he just can hit. He's just a hitter.
Yeah, he's 35, so I think I could see him probably spending his last 3 seasons here. I think if I'm Dombrowski, I'm just trying to look at it from his perspective. He is always thinking like, I don't really need someone if I could just get them later in the year for a low cost. I think he's always looking for that. I don't think he's like attached to players just because they're World Series champs. We'll see. I hope he comes back. I really do, because I'm suddenly a huge Steve Pearce guy. Imagine it back in like last January, February, if I was like, I'm telling you, Steve Pearce, this guy's going to have himself a year.
While he's like Kang for the Blue Jays.
I mean, he was one of those guys when he was on the Orioles, when he was on the Blue Jays, the Rays, like he was all these AL East teams. He was one of those guys you would just hear about just hitting an absolute moonshot, and then you wouldn't hear from him for another month. And then he'd be like, he hits like 30 homers in a season and you don't even blink.
Yeah. He just
So
Ks or hits a homer. But now
yeah,
it's like he had a couple big hits that weren't in this series. So
guy's got balls, and any guy who can be like that in the postseason is okay in my book. I hope he's back.
definitely.
Uh, so I think that wraps up this list. Yes, it does. So we will see. Hopefully sooner rather than later, if we're correct. I know they cannot bring Pomeranz back, and I don't think they can bring Kinsler back after we didn't see. He almost blew it for us. So I don't think we'll see him back either.
I'm looking at the free agent second baseman this year. There's some decent guys you could steal.
Anyone in particular that's catching your eye?
Daniel Descalso from the D-backs. I've
He
always
was
liked
one of the
him.
most clutch players on that team this season.
Yeah, I've always liked him. I mean, LeMay's a free agent, but he's going to get so
He'll
much
get
money.
big money, yeah.
They could bring Jed Lowry back at 35.
I would love that. He had a good year too.
Yeah, just some of those guys, just some names to keep in mind.
All right. Well, yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. And that leads us into our mailbag perfectly. We just touched on a couple of these questions, but I'll still, we don't have to go in depth on them. I'll still bring them up. The first one here for our mailbag, our final mailbag of the season until we inevitably have an off-season episode where we'll probably have one then.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
We'll start here. Should the Red Sox sign Eovaldi now or yesterday? I mean, should. I think they should just give him a blank check and see what he says. I want to know what you think. Should they? Like, from a team standpoint, should they bring him back?
Yeah, I mean, like, who's your rotation next year, honestly? Sale, Price,
Porcello, Eduardo Rodriguez, or I would go Eovaldi, then Rodriguez if you bring him back, but
I think that's a strong. I would bring him back because I think the back end of your rotation is pretty suspect right now. Like,
yep.
Erod's okay. Let's see how he bounces back.
Right.
But yeah, I would bring him back. I just think he's going to get so much more money from another team.
Agreed. And then the next one is, will Dustin Pedroia be good next year? My brain says no. Anything can happen. I mean, we just witnessed an entire postseason where everything we thought would happen did not happen, and everything we thought wouldn't happen did happen. So maybe Pedroia maybe he'll be AL comeback player of the year next year. Who knows? Yeah,
it depends what you define as good. I think he won't be as good as he used to be, but I think he'll hit like 260 with like 10 to 15 home runs and like 60 to 70 RBIs. Just kind of, that's who he is, you know.
And he'll be great in the field.
MVP candidate anymore,
right?
Know?
Yeah, nothing close to that. I think he'll be a lesser version. He'll be a poor man's 2013 Pedroia. He's just gonna be the same type of player at the plate with close to the same type of defense. Maybe he's lost a little bit of a step.
What I worry about with him is like the Nomar situation where he just like doesn't have it anymore and you just kind of have to move on from him at some point, because he seems like a guy that would get like prickly about that kind of stuff.
The thing with Pedroia is I just cannot picture the guy in a different uniform. It's just such a strange picture to me, but I also thought the same thing about Nomar back in the day, and we all know how that went. I thought the same thing about John Lester. There's a lot of Red Sox players who you see them in a different uniform eventually, and you're like, this just doesn't look right. Johnny Damon, Kevin Youkilis, all like
Ellsbury.
It goes, Ellsbury. It goes. You can go down the list there. Okay, next one. Do you think people like Ryan Brazier and or whoever, I like how it's open, like it's an open book, could get the closer spot if Kimbrel leaves? Now, I think it'll be kind of a competition there at first to start the season. It'll probably be switched between Kelly and Brazier, if I had to guess. And I think I actually like Brazier there. Consistency. I think Brazier's the more consistent guy.
Yeah, Brazier showed me a lot too. I don't know what's going on with his head, how he like dips his head to the side. There's something wrong with him, but you kind of need that in your closer.
Yeah.
You see Kimbrel with his arm, you need something a little bit wretched like that. But yeah, I mean, you can get Brazier for cheap and I'm not too worried about the closer position, honestly, anymore. I don't think it's as important, especially when you get to the playoffs. Like, as you saw, Kenley Jansen, one of the best closers in baseball, gets shelled. Like, it's you just got to have a lot of good arms. You just don't need one guy to be a closer. You just need a solid bullpen overall.
Yeah, and I completely agree. The game is changing so much where there used to be a lot of emphasis, and I guess there still kind of is, but we're seeing less of it now on saves, just the statistic of saves. And I don't think, at least the smart managers, I don't think they care about the save. John Farrell would only put Kimbrel in sometimes just because, like, he has to get the save. He's the closer. I think Alex Cora has more of an open mind, and we're going to see. I think it's going to be almost like a closer by committee next season, if I had to guess.
And one guy that I'm just looking at free agents again.
Yeah.
Zach Britton's a free agent. If he is not too much money, I would love to get him because we don't really have a great lefty reliever, honestly.
That'd be interesting if they just plucked him from the Yankees. But after what I saw from him down the stretch on the Yankees,
Yeah,
I wouldn't be upset if the Red Sox didn't get him.
Yeah.
Next up here, this one's tough actually because this one I didn't even prep for this one, and on the spot, this is a hard question. If you could be on a duck boat with any 3 Red Sox players, who would you choose?
I'll do it from this year's team.
Yeah.
So I got to go Matty Barnes, UConn guy.
Yep.
Whole connection. Eduardo Nunez. Everyone's saying that he's like a party animal. So
I can see it.
I'd like to see that side of him. And Chris Sale. I just feel like you see his dad celebrating like with his shirt off in the stands. He just seems like a guy that would just let loose and get crazy. So Sale, Barnes, and Nunez.
Okay, I'm gonna go. I agree with the Sale thing. I think he can get a little weird. Whatever, like he's a wild card. We'll see what happens there. This is tough. Maybe Joe Kelly. I think Joe Kelly is he seems like a pretty chill dude. Probably fun to hang out with. And a third one here, I will go with Mookie only because I want to see more of Mookie's personality. I want to see what he's like off the field. We don't really get to see much of that. We just know that he bowls like perfect games and that like that's pretty much it. That's all we know.
He's a loser, dude. Like maybe he's just doesn't have a good personality. It could be it.
I need to know for sure. So he's on my duck boat and we'll see what happens there. I do know actually though that he spoke out about the parade. He was not a fan of the beers being thrown. That was another storyline of the parade is all of the full cans of beer that were just being chucked at the duck boats. I don't blame him for being mad about it for sure, because who knows? Like Alex Cora was pissed. One guy actually got arrested for throwing a beer can at Alex Cora because his daughter was right there. His daughter was right in front of him and almost nailed her in the face. So I don't blame him either. But yeah, that's just a little note. Mookie Betts was pissed about the beer cans.
Yeah, I mean, come on, guys. I understand if like you have your daughter on it because like you want to protect them, but it's Boston. It's a parade. Like
catch the beer.
Expecting that. Yeah.
The thing with Mookie too, though, I guess I don't know if this actually was his reasoning for being mad. I think his wife is like very pregnant and she was next to him, so he was probably just being protective there. So I'm just giving the benefit of the doubt. Now, like if this is Gronk or Brady complaining about it, I'm like, suck it up. But I think the Red Sox is just a little different. I think
it's a softer group of guys. You know?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and last but not least, we've been asked to construct a starting 9 of players on basically combining the Red Sox 4 World Series rosters. So I will start here. I didn't do like a lineup or anything, just went position by position.
Yeah.
Catcher, I think it's Varitek. There's no other answer you can really have there. I like David Ross too, so he was thought about for this. Varitek's the captain. You have to take Varitek.
Yep, I would have Varitek too. I think that's not even close.
First base, I went with Kevin Youkilis. Now, I know his relationship with the Red Sox ended pretty sourly, but I think they've since made up for it. He threw out the first pitch in the postseason and all that good stuff. So I'm going with Uke here. I was just a big fan of the way he played the game.
Yeah, I mean, Youkilis is a great answer. The Red Sox, like, after Youkilis, I haven't really had, like, a stalwart at first base.
They always have a platoon, it seems.
Yeah, they always do.
And Napoli was under consideration, too, but he struck out too much for my liking. I don't like strikeout guys.
Yeah, me too.
So DH is Ortiz. Obviously, I love JD. We need to see more of it. Dustin Pedroia, second base. So far, this is the easiest thing ever because Dustin Pedroia, if he's not your second baseman, I really don't know what you're doing.
Who's your second baseman? Mark Elhorn?
Can I give like a funny answer here?
Yeah.
Mark Loretta.
Oh. Was he on any of those teams?
I don't think so.
That's even better.
You just popped in my head. Hold on. When did he play? I think he was right after the 13 team, right? Or right before it. Yeah,
I think he was right before it. How about Steven Drew?
No, he's probably my least favorite Red Sox of all time.
I know.
So yeah, he was. Oh, I'm an idiot. Mark Loretta was 06? Wow. Okay, so he was obviously right before I'm just gonna include him on the 07 team. So he's my runner-up at second base. Shortstop. I went with Bogarts. What other direction do you really go here?
Um,
Orlando Cabrera?
Orlando Cabrera. That's the only one I could think of. And
Yeah,
I
no one's picking Julio Lugo.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. No Pokey.
Not a very good guy. Not a very good guy.
Yeah.
Third baseman. Now, this might be the hardest one out of all of them because it's close between Bill Miller and Mike Lowell for me.
Yeah.
I went with Bill Miller. The switch hitting like grand slam thing when he hit the grand slam from both sides of the plate, that was the tiebreaker for me. I know Mike Lowell was a World Series MVP and everything. I still got to go with Billy Miller.
Yep. I'd probably go Lowell there, but it's really close. They both were clutch. I mean, both those guys are underrated Red Sox, in my opinion.
Do you think non-Red Sox fans know that Bill Miller won a batting title?
No, 100% no. And it's crazy because he was on the Red Sox. Like, if he did that with like the Cincinnati Reds, I could understand why people don't know. But
yeah,
he won a World Series. He had huge playoff hits.
Yeah, I think the only people that know that Bill Miller won a batting title are Red Sox fans and Yankee fans. He was a Yankee killer too. That's another reason why I like him.
I wonder what Bill Miller's up to nowadays because Lowell is like on MLB.
He's a base coach. He's for somebody. I don't know who, but I know Bill Miller is a base coach. I'm like 92% sure about that.
He was fired. He was fired by the Cardinals with Mike Matheny. So.
Oh shit! Really?
Yeah.
Okay. He hasn't found a new home since then.
Not yet. No. Someone hire Bill Miller.
Red Sox, get him on the squad. I don't care what his role is. Left field's Manny, no debate. Center field now. Ellsbury didn't really. I mean, he contributed towards the end of the 2007 season. That's when he was first starting to break in the league. And obviously, he was a superstar for a couple years after that. And I still went with JBJ here. It's a tough call, but if we're just talking about these rosters, I had to go with JBJ. I'm also very biased. I don't like Johnny Damon at all, so I'm very biased in that regard.
I'd probably go Damon just because what he did at Yankee Stadium for the 2004 team, but that's it. Like,
he's the better player. I think he's the better overall player. He's obviously JBJ is the better fielder. I'd rather. I mean, Johnny Damon's bat is just so much better than JBJ's that I would roll with him as the better player. But JBJ, I think I'd rather have him on my team.
Yeah, and Johnny Damon's been like, it seems like he's more of a Yankees guy than a Red Sox guy. So
he is, and that's another reason why I'm taking JBJ. Right field, Mookie. I don't know if is there another pick here? Has Mookie done enough in his Red Sox career to earn that?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
I mean, who else would you pick?
JD Drew.
I'm looking at the names here. Yeah, like
Trot Nixon.
Yeah, Trot Nixon. I mean, Coco Chris played center, so not him. I mean, I don't know. I think it has to be Mookie Betts.
Yeah, I'd say Trot Nixon would be a sleeper there, only because he's a dirt dog, and Boston loves dirt dogs, and he was one of the best fastball hitters, at least of that time. And then you have pitcher. I mean, it's Pedro Martinez, but I think Chris Sale gives him if we're talking about like the 2004 team, that was actually Pedro's like worst season as a Red Sox. So I'm still taking Pedro because he's Pedro Martinez. But if you're talking about like just the team specific versions, I'd probably go with Sale.
Yeah, my rotation would probably be Pedro, maybe Lester even too.
Lester's got to be up there, yeah.
Lester, Sale,
Schilling.
Schilling. I hate to say it, but maybe John Lackey. Like
only 2013 John Lackey.
Oh,
that guy stepped up, but the rest of the versions of John Lackey.
And then Tim Wakefield.
I want Tim Wakefield out of my face. I love Wakefield because he's just a true Red Sox, but like I want no part of it. He's like the worst postseason pitcher of all time.
Yeah. I just love knuckleballers.
Yeah. So then Stephen Wright's got to be in there somewhere too.
Yeah, Stephen Wright.
Where did he go? He just had knee issues and then just was like, hey, I'm out.
Yeah, I saw him in the dugout talking to Benintendi like the whole World Series. I'm like, oh, Stephen Wright's around.
Yeah, whatever. Why not? All right. Well, that's the World Series edition of the podcast. Again, I mean, it all worked out in our favor and not Graz's favor, so can't hate on that. It was a great season. Both of us doubted this Red Sox team all season long. We always had some sort of reason to doubt them, and they proved us wrong. They proved everybody wrong. That's what this team is going to be remembered for. Looking ahead to 2019, but we're going to take a little bit of time off on this podcast. We'll be back later in the offseason for whenever something big happens. Of course, that's probably going to be the case in winter. We have a good amount of free agents that are worth keeping an eye on this winter. So we'll be back if any of those guys are signed with maybe it'll be a 15-minute episode. Maybe it'll be an hour episode. We don't know yet. So On that note, Zach, do you have any final words as we end this 2018 season edition of Tater Talk?
No, just start spreading the news.
Perfect. We'll end it there. We'll see you guys later.
Peace.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want